My name is Terrence Barkin. I'm the Executive Director of the Graphene Council, and we're hosting today's webinar on graphene-enhanced textiles and applications. We have an excellent panel of experts with us today for a dialogue on this, and you'll see a short presentation to give you some technical background. If you're not familiar with the Graphene Council, we were founded in 2013, so it's almost 10 years that we've been working on this material. We connect more than 30,000 material scientists worldwide, 2/3 of which are in the commercial sector and 1/3 are academic-based or university-based. And our mission is to advance the commercial adoption of graphene because of all the massive improvements it can provide in all sorts of applications, and textiles is one of those. And with that, I'd like to ask each of our panelists to give a brief introduction of themselves so that we know who we have here on today's webinar, and then we'll get into a short presentation followed by discussion and Q&A. So Jorge, you're the one up latest at night, live from Hong Kong. If you want to kick us off and introduce yourself and your company.
Hi, Terrence. Sure. Happy to be here. Well, my name is Jorge Barros. I'm the founder and CEO of Graphene-X. We are a revolutionary company that integrates graphene into high-tech clothing and gear. It's really a pleasure to be here with this very distinctive panel over here and a bunch of attendees from all across the world. And I'm really happy to dig in and try to enlighten as much as we can on what we are doing and how we see graphene making a difference in textiles, in gear, and a bunch of things that we can sure cover in this hour. Thanks.
Thank you, Jorge. And Dhruv Agarwal.
Thank you, Terrence. And good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone around the world. And we are here to discuss about graphene and textiles. Interesting topic, as Terrence said. We love to see how we can keep on progressing here. But as for my introduction, I'm Dhruv Agarwal. I lead the innovation, sustainability, and product development for Kontoor brands. As you may not know, many people may not know Kontoor brands, but you would definitely recognize the two iconic denim brands which Kontoor brands holds. One is Wrangler and one is Lee. And my role is global innovation for those companies. From my background, I've been in this industry for almost 20 plus years. I have been in polymers, fibers, apparel, and textile in these 25 years, and have looked at every aspect of this industry. So it's good to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dhruv. Thank you so much. And Dave Vanek from Graphene-One.
Yeah, thank you all for joining. I'm a Director of Sales and Business Development for Graphene-One LLC. I'll explain who the company is in a bit in one of the slides. I am a chemical engineer by training. I've been with Graphene-One 2 years now. And I've worked in plastics for 30 plus years, from automotive to defense, body armor, packaging. So I've worked in a lot of different industries, and this is very interesting, working with a brand new material, trying to get that out in the market and educate people on what it can do and what it doesn't do, because there's also, of course, a lot of people come to me thinking that it can do things that in what we do doesn't really work. So I spend a lot of time talking with mills and with brands about our fibers and how you can use those and what they might do in the applications. But I'm really excited to have our two panelists here today, because they're actually using the product and have commercialized products with it. So this is a great chance for them to share how they've used our fiber in their specific applications.
Excellent. Thank you, Dave. And will you go ahead and start the sharing of the screen to show your slides? I want to also disclose, full disclosure, I'm actually wearing a Graphene-X shirt. This is a graphene enhanced fiber shirt that I wear every single day.
Yeah, this has got my contact information here. Actually, if I don't answer all your questions today or want to get sensitive, you can always send me an email or something. And I mentioned that I'm the Director of Sales here, and I kind of cover pretty much the globe. So wherever you're coming from, I'm based here in Charlotte, North Carolina, work from my home office, but I kind of cover the globe. If you look on the slide, Graphene-One was founded in 2015, and it's down on the far right lower corner, but it's part of QS Group. QS Group is a privately held Chinese company that's been in business for almost 30 years now. Their primary business has been in the manufacturing of safety gloves. So PPE safety gloves, and that's still a core business for them. And that's handled in the QS Safety Division, which you see on the left-hand side. And they actually started in 2014 selling their own brand of gloves called Armor Guys. So here in the States anyway, you could buy safety gloves from the Armor Guys, which are made by QS, but they also make safety gloves for all the major brands out there as well. And they got into solar panels in the 2007. And I mentioned that because that was their first interest in graphene, was looking at could it enhance the efficiency of solar panels. They still have a business in solar panels. But then we got started looking at graphene back in 2009, and then started the Graphene-One division, which is based in California. All the manufacturing is done in China, research development. We have warehousing in the U.S., but that was founded in 2015. And then what we really do, like I say, started the research in 2009, but we make our own graphene. We make graphene oxide, and we incorporate that into the fiber. So the fiber production part is pretty much standard. If you look at the bottom of the screen there, we make nylon, polyester, and viscose, and the viscose is bamboo-based. And then we make ultra-high molecular weight filament as well. In most of those, we make both staple fiber and filament, but we put the graphene oxide into the polymer. And it's a small percentage, it's 1 or 2%, and it's dispersed and bonded to the fiber. And that's really where our technology was evolved from. And we have some 30 patents on both the production of the graphene oxide, and also production of the fibers. And really the effort was to get it into something that was cost effective. A lot of work on research. And graphene now is still at the lab scale, but we realized that if you're going to get into commercial applications in textiles, you need to have a high volume, reproducible product that is cost effective in a clothing item. And Terrence mentioned his shirt in anti-odor and antibacterial, and that are the top 3 properties listed on this chart: bacteriostatic, odor neutralizing, and thermal regulation are the top 3 reasons that most people end up looking at our fiber and testing it and developing it into applications. All of those come from the 2D nature of graphene. The graphene particle has a higher electron density above and below because of the two-dimensional structure. I mean, it's carbon-based, but the chemistry of it, based on the nanostructure, gives it the functionalized properties in the fiber, and the particles are bonded specifically to the polymer backbone, so they are permanent. And we'll talk a little bit about sustainability in the webinar, but that's one of the biggest features of our product, is that it's not a coating, it's not added as a fabric finish, it's a part of the fiber, and it will be there for the life of that fiber in the garment. So we'll be there for the life of the garment. And we've been in business now, like I say, several years. We've now got commercial applications in socks, underwear, denim, jackets, sportswear, bedding, and more. And I didn't talk much about mechanical strength and abrasion resistance. That's mostly related to our ultra-high molecular weight fiber in the cut resistance glove. We do put it in our gloves. If you look at Armor Guys gloves, there are Kyrene branded Armor Guys gloves, and they have very high cut and abrasion resistance as measured in a glove test. It also has UV resistance and mosquito and mite resistance, which are some interesting properties, could be used for outdoor applications. So that's the end of the slides. Let me stop sharing. And then I'd like to go into the Q&A and quit listening to me, but hear from these guys. And I'll address the first question to Dhruv, and then we'll have Jorge comment as well. But I think it starts where did you get started? So the first question is, tell us how you got interested in graphene, what piqued your interest, and what was the initial product that you started developing based on graphene fiber?
So Dave, thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak over here. Graphene is always considered like a wonder material, right? Everybody talked about it, Nobel Prize, so much about it. So we always want to know how it can be utilized in different applications. Textile was always considered to be maybe amongst the last one where it will definitely hit sometime. But I was lucky. I was in a conference sometime in 2016-17, and I met one of your colleagues in one of those conferences, and he was still talking about a lot of things, and it was still in the lab stage. And your company was still working on it, but it had not commercialized. And we as a company are always looking for things which can bring comfort to our consumers. We are looking for comfort, what can give our consumers something where they can really feel comfortable. And when I was listening to your colleague and knowing the background on the 2D materials and how these 2D materials, especially in the nano size, can enhance the properties to an extent which some of the micro materials cannot. My background was in fibers. I have dealt and have patents also of my own with my previous companies, where we have incorporated a lot of additives in the fibers to improve the properties. Initially, when I was listening to him, your colleague, I was like skeptical whether this graphene will do anything at all. It's a joke. So, that's how it all started. It was 2016, 17, and it was still in the lab. But, we worked, we collaborated. We basically, what we did was we brought some of your materials. We were basically trying to understand what kind of properties it has. We have an immense group of excellent scientists in-house who can look at these things, vet it and see whether it is really true or not. So we were basically able to bring these materials in-house, start looking at it, and collaborating, with your group in Shanghai to see how we can improve it. One of the concern for us was with anything you're adding in the fiber stage, in the polymer stage, is the agglomeration, especially when it is such a small size particle. And will it be put in a consistent way into the fiber? And that was something we worked together to refine that. And finally, once we had the refined stage, we were able to look at the properties, look at the thermal properties, look at the IR properties, and see whether it is making impact. And definitely, when we were able to see these properties in our lab, we really got surprised that this is really working, and we were able to compare it to a conventional fiber, conventional material, which was not having a graphene oxide in it, and see some interesting properties. So that was the start of the journey. It was in 2016-17, talking to some of your colleagues and looking at for us, as I told you, for a branded company like us, we basically are looking for our consumer, and consumers are asking for comfort, and that these are the basic human needs. Is, as Terence said, I have a polo shirt and I would like to be comfortable in it. It gives me a comfort all year round, and that's what our consumers are asking all the time. So what can we do to bring those comfort aspects, those benefits for our consumer? And we are constantly looking for new materials, and graphene oxide is one of them. We're not going to say the graphene oxide is the only one, but definitely it has some interesting properties. It is one of the things which you showed in your slide, Dave, was how many benefits it has. So it has a multifunctional aspect. So not one benefit, but multiple benefits. So that's a huge part of the graphene oxide. So we continued on this journey, and in 2016-17 we met. 2019 is our first launch, and this was all in our Asia market. This is China, Hong Kong, that region. We launched, first product was a liner for our jacket. This is a smart heated jacket we launched. This this is heated through a certain kind of nanomaterials. And then we had a liner of the inside the jacket, which was made with a graphene material, just to move the heat, regulate the heat and move the heat all across the jacket in a better way. And that was the launch. And then we continued on this journey. 2020, we included that in the denim, and we launched it in the denim products. And in 2021, we basically included in more products, which is in knits and jackets and many other things. So we continued on this journey of including graphene, and we'll continue to look at these things in future in a different way also.
Yeah, excellent. So it wasn't overnight. Starting in 2016 is quite a journey, and you started before I started. So so I'm learning from you. But
one important thing over there was basically working when it was at lab stage and working and in a collaborative manner. It was not like it was existing and we just picked it up. We worked with you to develop it for our users.
Yeah. And that continues today in working with the mills and working with brands. You have to incorporate it correctly in the fabric. We'll get to that. But so, yeah, it takes a while to figure out how you want to use it and what major benefits you want to use. But let me not quit talking and turn it over to Jorge to tell us about how he got interested in graphene and in his journey. And I've heard this interesting stories before, so I'm looking forward to hearing it again.
Yeah, well, our beginning on this journey is totally different. It started from a completely different standpoint, not like Dhruv, that is part of a Titan company, if you call so. Our journey really started from a consumer standpoint, and it started with two broken paradigms. The first one was when we basically arrived to Hong Kong. On 2017, and the first paradigm of that the first thing that you need to think before buying anything is to see if you can afford it. Here in Hong Kong is completely different. The paradigm is, can you actually put that inside your house? We have really small spaces here, so the real estate inside your real estate is really the first thing that you need to consider. Having 10 different jackets, like the ones that I had in Chile, one for sports, one for hiking, one for friends, one for hanging out, one for business meeting in Starbucks, was really not optimal to have. And that's where the first question started. I mean, why do we really need 10 different jackets? I mean, how come we're putting satellites, with internet or even thinking in reaching Mars, but somehow technology hasn't really impacted clothing, which is something that we do and use every single day. So that's the first paradigm. And the second one was a little bit more suffered. I was hiking Kinabalu, which is not Everest, but it's the highest mountain in Malaysia. It's a little bit over 4,000 meters. And the paradigm was, okay, you go, you buy a top-notch brand, you spend top dollar, and most probably that particular jacket is going to perform. Well, it didn't. I had a hole in my jacket from just a small abrasion with a branch, just starting this hike. Of course, it started raining, a huge storm, and I summited the mountain completely soaked, absolutely frozen. I thought, this is just not possible, It should be better, And that's where basically where everything started, and we started investigating on materials. I mean, again, just from a consumer standpoint. And graphene appeared on our radars. We're looking for candidates on how to develop, and at least for us, unseen line of goods that would not only be extremely durable, but also to perform highly in a wide variety of situations. Since then, it's hard to look back when you find a material like graphene with the properties it features. Based in Hong Kong, for us, it was super easy to move across Asia, and we literally just jump on a train, like with nothing under our hands, to the Canton Fair in Guangzhou. This is 2015, 2018, looking for a company that was willing to help us to develop this vision, develop a brand that was able to manufacture durable and versatile goods with the vision of trying to integrate graphene into the fabrics. And things happen for something. We go to Guangzhou, which I don't know how many of these panelists have been there, but it's literally a city made out of an exhibition center. It's huge. And we crossed with a company that was willing to do this work with us, to work as partners in this whole process. They believed and agreed on our vision. And since then, everything started. We started iterating different prototypes, materials, compositions, etc. And we landed to our first product, which was the Alpha Series jacket, a 3-layer graphene integrated shell jacket. We had the product, but then we had the second biggest challenge. Again, we started for a completely different base and roof here, and we had no connections on retail. We had no connections on commerce or nothing, not even connections on e-commerce selling. But gladly, I was a keen buyer of Kickstarter products, which is basically a place where you pre-order innovations and wish for the best. And it seemed like a good place to see if there was a good market fit for our vision and for our product in particular. We launched a campaign. For those that don't know, normally you have 30 days campaign where you show your prototype, you make a video and you say, hey guys, this is our vision. Are you willing to trust us? And to our surprise, honestly, the campaign was a total success. We became among the 0.3% of the most successful Kickstarter campaigns in time, with over 500,000 campaigns run so far, and over 2,000 backers from over 100 countries that bought our first jacket. That's the moment where Graphene-X became alive and this whole journey started. Back to you.
Yeah, I love the journey because you start in South America, you go to Hong Kong, you have to come up with it started very personal for you, and then you figured out a way with Kickstarter to start a company to take your idea. And I see that in the market more and more with today's economy and the internet, that you can actually start something with an idea, with a brainstorm. But my next question, and I'll turn it back to you, Jorge, would be, why graphene? There was a lot of technologies. You said you went to a trade show, a lot of technologies out there. What were you looking to achieve with graphene? And then how did you transition from, okay, there's a technology, but how do I get that into a commercial product? That's a lot of the graphene, as we talked about, is still in a infancy state. So how did you get it to a commercial product?
Well, when in our ignorance, consumer-based approach, when you cross roads with a material that is extremely strong, incredibly light, that features far infrared properties, that's antibacterial, that's flexible, that's practically invisible, you fell in love. That's what happened. It's hard to look back, right? So we really wanted to see if there was a true difference by integrating graphene into fabrics. We truly believe that graphene could empower commonly used fabrics to perform in a whole different level. Now, with this idea in mind, with this vision in mind, with a real problem, or at least a consumer problem that was evident to us at the moment, we formed a strong vision. I saw that someone was asking how to actually make a business from little to big, right? Without being Nike or Arc'teryx or Patagonia or etc. A strong vision. At the end of the day, you need to be convinced on a strong vision, and how to make it happen is part of your second question, Dave, which has to do with the transition. How to make it happen, and for us, considering that we didn't have the background, we didn't have the connections, we needed to partner with experts that would truly understand the process on how to produce high quality graphene, partners that would really understand how to produce and manufacture high-performing goods from an engineering point, partners on how to help us to voice our vision across the world. For us, that was absolutely essential. Again, we started from a point where we didn't have $1 million under the arm, where we needed to pay research and see if this was possible or not. We just had a strong vision. And finding companies that would believe in your vision and are willing to invest not money, but time, especially time, was paramount for us. Again, from our manufacturer to our graphene providers, they're all equally important. And the counterpart of that is, of course, is the thousands of people that are willing to trust as a consumer, as a buyer of that vision. And then if that happens, then the real challenge starts, because you need to deliver to them. And that's why we put 100% of our focus in deliver to our clients. We define ourselves as a backer-centric brand, and everything we do has that in mind. Graphene is the keystone of what we do. And so far, we're incredibly proud of being at the level of the expectations that we have tried to believe in and deliver at the same time.
Dave, if you don't mind, I'd like to jump in because there's a couple of questions from our audience on a technical nature. And then I want to ask a question to Drew. So let me ask the Drew first, if you don't mind. And it's about the business case, because you mentioned the evolution, how long it took for you to get this into your product. I personally think that your timeline was pretty darn quick, especially for a large company. And I think when you have these really well-established brands like the Wrangler and the Lee brands, that it's not a trivial exercise to try a new material, right? Because you're kind of betting the brand when you do that. So can you talk a little bit about the business case, and you're expanding this into more of your product. So I assume the business case is a positive one, but talk a little bit about, the due diligence you had to go through, the vetting of the actual performance of the material, and the business case to put it into your product, and what you see going forward, because it sounds like you're expanding your application of this material.
Definitely, Terence. So this is a very interesting question. It's not a easy task when you are in a company with multiple brands and to convince folks. My role is from the back end aspect to bring new technologies for our company, but there is a lot of convincing, not only from within the company but also externally. And how it goes is that this thing happened, as I told you earlier. This thing was launched for our brands in the market of Asia, China, Hong Kong, and other places. And that market is always hungry for better things. And they are looking for newer technologies which can provide the comfort aspect. So, and also that the business on that end of the market is always looking for unique things. The graphene-based products are meant for our winter collection, and there's a summer collection which is more from the angle of summer comfort, but then there's a winter collection which is meant for the cooler temperatures and on those aspects. So the graphene-based technologies were basically marketed for that kind of a collection for this winter. It was something where we had to convince our management, but it is not an easy way. Technical aspects, you and I can talk about it, but ultimately it has to go through multiple vetting. And one of the area we had to vet was through the consumer wear trials. Basically, make it, take some garments, make it wear to your consumer, and let them give the feedback whether they are seeing any benefit or not. That is the most important thing. Are we seeing any benefit? Yeah, definitely. On our testing lab, you can see that it is changing in terms of thermal regulatory properties or far infrared properties. But ultimately, it has to come from a consumer, and that's where we had to do that testing to see whether it is really doing anything or not. You are right. It generally, a lot of these things take years to get into your market, but our market dynamics are very different in that part of the world where our business is interested. And if everything is everybody gets interested, things move pretty fast. And so we were able to launch. First was in the jacket, as I told you. It was only in the lineup. It was something we just want to see whether it really works or not. At that time, even Kyrene was very early in their phase of development. So, we were just trying to see how it will work out. We want to have the confidence in this product as well as in the supply chain through Kyrene. But from then onwards, we were able to build that confidence and slowly launch it into our denim collection first in 2020. And once we got that confidence, we expanded in 2021 in more knits collection. So it was a building of that confidence, building of the supply chain, and also learning from our consumer what they are looking for, what they are saying, are they receptive to these changes? That is one important thing. Another thing over here is, when we are looking at these aspects, internally, we have to also look at our products. Are we changing any aesthetics of our garments? And if you change the aesthetics, then it becomes like you can limit yourself just to a black color or a gray color. That won't sell in fact in all the markets, in all the SKUs which we develop. So we had to look at all those aspects of aesthetics. And we were lucky that in our products, we were able to create more colors through textile engineering and were able to sell these products in the market in a beautiful way. So there was limitations, but we were able to overcome them both from internal and external standpoint.
Thank you for that. And Dave, I have a question for you, but I just want to capture something for the audience to really think about is the amount of vetting and testing and trialing that went into this product being included in these major brands. I want people to understand how important that is, because a lot of people hear claims about graphene, but especially in textiles, they might be difficult to prove. And I can tell you, because I wear this product, and to be honest, it is the most comfortable shirt I have ever worn. That's not an exaggeration. And I know, I'm a big fan of graphene, but I can feel the difference. And so, Dave, we've got a bunch of questions on the technical side about, the fact is the graphene covalently bonded into the material? Is it embedded in the fiber? Is it done in the melt phase? Some of the technical aspects. And tied into that are concerns about health and safety, which, can the graphene be liberated from the fiber? Now, before you answer that question, I just also want to share with the audience that there was an issue with face masks that contained graphene material earlier in 2021. And the Graphene Council did extensive testing on 4 different face masks that incorporated graphene into the fiber, into the face masks. And so we tested this, and it showed that the graphene, when it was embedded in the fiber, cannot be liberated. It does not come out of the material. And I believe that's the case with your Kyrene. But I wanted to offer that it's not just your claim, that we had this independently tested by the National Physical Laboratory in the UK and by a leading lab here in the United States. We had them test the same material to see if the graphene could be liberated from the fiber, and it was not. So even the small amount of graphene, which is pretty benign, that's embedded, was not liberated. So from a health and safety perspective, I think that's important. So Dave, the question for you is about the technical aspect. How do you get the graphene into the fiber? Is it the melt mix? Is it permanently embedded? That sort of thing.
Yeah, and it is. Basically, we take the graphene, we make the graphene oxide, we make a master batch concentrate in the same polymer, and we add that as the polymer is being extruded. So it is completely covalently bonded to the polymer backbone. And, again, it's a small, very, very, very nanoparticle. So it's not going anywhere. It's there for the life of the fiber. There's no safety issues with particles being generated. It's completely encapsulated in the polymer. And the nice part too that we've seen is that we don't really change much of the physical properties of the polymer we're using. So our nylon fiber is just like a regular nylon fiber. Our polyester is similar to polyester. So if you're taking and making a 50-50 blend of a cotton poly for a t-shirt, for instance, it'll knit, it'll weave just like a standard fiber, it'll dye like a standard fiber. So the chemical, it doesn't, unfortunately, it doesn't change the like melting point of the fiber or anything either. So it still behaves like a standard fiber. So we haven't had major issues in like the weaving and knitting side of things, or the dyeing or finishing. It's really been more of trying to come up with the right structure, right fabric structure for the garment. That would, if that answers your question.
Yeah, I think it does. Another topic that's really important, Jorge, you kind of touched on it, is if we look at sustainability, and I want to mix this with the economics here, because your products, I think it's safe to say, are not, commodity products. They're a premium price. They're not the least expensive textiles on the market by far. But, there's an old adage, you get what you pay for. And often it's much better to invest in a higher quality product that you will keep for a long time than it is to, invest in cheap products that you're constantly replacing. So I'm going to mix the question here. Sustainability is a big, important question for everybody. Your products, I would argue, are premium products. Talk about the testing, because we had this discussion once about the pill testing and the rub resistance and the longevity of these products. And then I also want to throw in here to the theme, because it's one of the questions we have about, fire resistance or whatever. You have consumer products, but there's an awful lot of high performance type environments. Like if you think of firefighters, if you think of military use, if you think of construction use, where you need a more robust material. So talk a little bit about the concept of buying better for longer. And Drew, I'd ask you the same question, is kind of like the premium pricing, how does this product perform? Is it along the same concept of having people invest in keeping it longer? But Jorge, do you want to tackle that one first?
Yeah, sure. And let me escalate your remixing of questions, Terence, to put another one on top of that, which aligns with a little bit of what Drew and Dave just mentioned before. One of the biggest challenges that we face as an industry, and particularly in textiles, is that people normally associate technology with screens, processors, virtual reality, metaverse, etc. But it's harder to align fabrics to technology. Well, what we are actually doing today by integrating Kyron graphene into our fabrics to develop, let's say, the alpha or the omega pants, it's truly the true pinnacle of technology. It's the essence of technology. Now, when I don't know how many of you guys have ever seen this or are true fans of the Formula One, but probably not many people around understands the technology behind the tires of the cars of the Formula One. It's not obvious, but the amount of technology that you find there is truly impressive. What we can achieve in fabrics and in apparel and in gear is not far from there, right? So that on one side, and then linking this technology for the greater good through what we're doing. First of all, we started with the basis. We're climate neutral certified since the beginning of our operations, which basically means that we pay and we buy carbon credits to offset our footprint. But most importantly, we believe that the best way to be a sustainable brand is to make durable goods. That's what we are trying to aim, and that's what we're fighting for with our products. We believe somehow fast fashion has taken over. Things do not last what they used to last. Most probably, many of you here have had a mother or a grandmother telling them, my refrigerator used to last 10 years, 15 years, 40 years, and now they just break in 2 years. And you just go, you throw it to the trash and buy another one. Long before, it was an object of pride to wear a jacket that was inherited by your father or your grandfather. It basically meant that it was a hell of a jacket. We believe sustainability, at least on our side, should be aimed on that angle. And that's our approach to sustainability. There are brands that are doing amazing job in this sense, particularly the symbol of a sustainable brand is probably Patagonia. But again, it's a different approach. We believe graphene has the potential to be the game changer material on fabrics and on gear to make it durable and versatile. That's our approach to versatility.
Yes, the analogy would be, or the obvious example in this space would be Gore-Tex, right? If you think of Gore-Tex and what they were able to do to position that technology, that then you say Gore-Tex, right? And with graphene, I would say that, if we can get to that level of name recognition where people understand, now it's also going to require that it actually works and that it's verified, right? Because there's a lot of people, unfortunately, in this space that make claims that are maybe not substantiated. So, Drew, what's your perspective? And feel free to change the topic here if you want to take this from a different angle. But on the sustainability part of it, because I think that's part of your remit. How does this fit?
Definitely, for a company like ours, and everybody right now is very much about sustainability, and sustainability is an important topic. When we're looking at the climate change happening around the world, we have to think about sustainability. But how do you look at sustainability is another topic. Whether it is in terms of the materials, whether it is in terms of energy use, climate change, water use, look at all those aspects and say, hey, what does bringing a graphene into the mix helps us to reduce our climate impact? And think in terms of, graphene, what is it meant for? It is meant for giving you a comfort, thermal regulation, giving you aspect of where you can maintain, your body temperature in a good way. And where is most of the energy used? Mostly is in heating and cooling your buildings and heating and cooling the houses and all that. Think in terms when you are wearing an apparel which has a graphene in it, and if it keeps you comfortable when you are, that's what Jorge was talking about, keeps you comfortable all the time. You do not have to either keep running your air conditioners or the heating systems, and hopefully that will reduce down the energy usage to some extent. So I think if you just look from that angle of completely different angle of where is the energy, where is the climate change, and all about CO2 emissions, and that is big time is usage of the fuels to run and develop the power and energy. And if we can help that through a product like this, to some extent, definitely it will be a great way to help from the sustainability angle. So I'm looking from a different angle than just saying, okay, this is a kind of a sustainable. Yes, it is a sustainable. Carbon is there. Carbon is ubiquitous. So it's available everywhere. So it's nothing new from the angle of, that we are bringing some heavy metal or something like that over here. It's a simple carbon 2D material, and so it's anything which is harmful from any way. Also, and you already spoken about that it is embedded. It's not going to wear off. So that's another important thing is it's not wearing off. It's not polluting anything in one way or other. So I think there are a lot of good things from that angle. If you just look from the sustainability aspect, utilizing these graphene oxide-based materials, and we basically been on this journey for almost like 4 years now.
Yeah. Well, I think it's encouraging to see how mature this is. Again, we have some participants on our call today for whom graphene is brand new and aren't that familiar with it. And I'm also encouraged that we have some, important brands and retailers and manufacturers that might be interested in this. And we really encourage you, one of the reasons the Graphene Council exists is to help connect people who are interested in the product with people who produce the product. And we have a tremendous interest in also verifying and vetting that it's a genuine bona fide product, because that's important. And dealing with a material like graphene that's a nanomaterial is not you can't just take a bucket of it and put it into a product. It takes some handling. Dave, can you talk a little bit, if you can, about the fact that I think it's always surprising to people when they understand how little graphene needs to be added to a product to drive some of these benefits. And then, from a cost perspective, I think that's the other question that everybody's going to have is say, hey, I've heard graphene is like so expensive. It could be over $1,000 a kilo. It can also be $50 a kilo, depending on the type of material that you have. But the fact that you only need a very small amount of it mitigates, even if it's at a higher price end. Can you talk a little bit about, the cost dynamics? And I'd invite either Jorge or Dhruv to also talk from your aspects. How do you handle this? Adding a material, it's going to add cost. How does that balance out, and how do you make that work?
Yeah. Well, we sell it as a fiber, right? So, and you don't often use 100%. First of all, the graphene is only a small percentage, 1 or 2% in the fiber, but it does make the fiber a more expensive than a traditional polyester or nylon fiber. But you typically, when you engineer the fabric, if you look at your clothing today, hardly anything is made of one fiber. You've always got, you've got polyester combined with cotton, you've got wool, nylon, you've got 5 or 6 different things, and a little bit of lycra or spandex put in there for stretch, right? So the textile industry has a way of always combining all the different polymers out there, natural fibers and synthetic fibers, to come up with the finished fabric. If you want to do antibacterial, we typically tell people between 30 and 50% of the finished fabric should be made with the Kyrene graphene fiber. So it's often, it's more expensive, but you're not using 100% of it. And other people are only using it in certain portions of the garment. So if they're really just looking for, say, anti-odor or for wear properties, you can just put it in some portion of the garment. We have some people making socks that are just putting it in the heel and the toe area versus the whole sock. So, you can use it smartly as well. And I would just mention a minute about the sustainability too, if I jump back in on that one. But, some of the brands have gone to, we're going to use only recycled materials. So for them, sustainability means recycle, because that's something that, they can advertise, they can understand, and that the consumer understands. And you see that a lot with polyester out there. We have a recycled polyester grade we've just launched. So if people want to get a graphene polyester, that's available now in the market. So, and our other product people are talking about is, natural fibers. They want to have fibers that can be renewable. So, our viscose is based on bamboo, which is renewable energy. So we try to offer for the polymers that are more seen as more recyclable or sustainable. But really, our play is, it's not a coating. It's not a metal-based coating or a finish that's sprayed on. It goes to the fact that it's going to be in the garment forever. People talk in our industry about 30 washes or 50 washes. But I look at, 50 washes. If you're wearing it often, that's 1 or 2 years. Whereas our technology, the graphene will be in there for the life of the product. So 10, 20 years of the jacket lasting. So that's how we typically talk about sustainability.
And just to underpin that and to endorse that, we've seen where graphene is used in other similar applications with plastics for recycling. And because it's embedded in the polymer, when it gets recycled, it's still in there and it's still giving beneficial attributes to the material. So I think that's something also to be remembered. So Dhruv, what about you? What's your opinion on this topic about the economics of it? How does it impact, your costing and profitability? And I don't ask you to, share anything that's trade secret or confidential, but can you talk a little bit about that?
Definitely, as Dave said, it's all about how much really brings the impact, and you have to engineer your products to get the right impact. So as I told you, we worked on it for a long time, so we know how much you have to include it in your fabrics or in your products. So definitely by just simple changes in your fabric construction, and just including the styrene fiber, as Dave said, that is expensive as compared to your normal nylons and the polyesters and the viscose. Definitely your product will be expensive eventually, but we're not changing the whole product to have the graphene material. You may be adding like 20%, 30% of the fiber, and that could be having a graphene oxide in it to have the right performance. So, that 20-30% is going to change the cost of the product. Definitely, it will be slightly, marketed and sold at a higher tiers, higher levels. And the consumer who is looking for these kind of products, and I can see a lot of chat over here where people are looking for these kind of things. They are willing to pay for these things. It is important we talk about sustainability and we talk about cost. Looking at the overall total cost, Jorge mentioned about durability. It's important we talk about durability. Sustainability is not just about, or the cost is not about, in fast fashion. It is also about making sure that product lasts longer, and having these things which gives you a comfort, which keeps your product longer existing, in your shelves. I think we want those kind of products, and we want to give it to our consumers who are really looking for these kind of products. And the consumers are really, if you look at the current market, consumers are waking up for these kind of things. They are looking and asking and hungry for these kind of products and willing to pay for that a slight premium to these products. Again, not every market is going to receive it in that same way. There are certain consumer segments, but I think that is expanding holistically around the world. So it is going to take some time to expand it across the globe, but it is happening.
I would certainly expect that, right? People are willing to pay a premium for a premium product. There's always a market for higher end and for premium performance products. And in fact, I think this is a great opportunity for companies that want to differentiate themselves with something, and I want to emphasize this, that has been proven, tested, that it actually adds some performance. It's not just a marketing gimmick. It's not just a perception or a wish list. It actually improves. And with that, Jorge, I know that you guys have done some testing on the rub tests and stuff like that, and you have some data. Are you able to speak a little bit about that? Because I think some of it was pretty exceptional.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, there was someone that asked that on the Q&A, and I quickly type it. But basically, again, durability. Probably the most common test to try durability is the Martindale abrasion and peeling test, which basically consists of putting a piece of fabric and making X amount of rubs till the fabric fails. So as a point of reference, okay, military grade gear is required to withstand at least 20,000 rubs to be good to serve. Again, from our very consumer-oriented vision, we said, okay, we are integrating the Alpha series and our Omega pants with carrying graphene. So we said, okay, let's test the Alpha series jacket. And this is, of course, in independent labs. Intertech is the lab that we use, which is the biggest name here, at least in Hong Kong. We submitted the Alpha series jacket for a test of 100,000 rubs, basically 5X military grade gear, and our Omega pants for 150,000 rubs. We really had to fight the guys on the laboratory because they didn't want to run the test for so long. They said, it's pointless, you don't need so, the fabric would fail. We had to pay extra to convince them, but we did. And to their surprise and to our happiness, the products and the fabrics withstand the test with flying colors. So that's actual data. It's not me hiking Kinabalu telling you guys this is amazing. It's not our 4.89 rating from other customers. It's lab test. And I think part of this challenge that we all have as an industry of putting the right spotlight in graphene has to be supported with actual science, not extremely complicated science, but basic science, proven science. When I tell you about a rubbing machine that goes on top of a fabric, I think it's easy for anybody to understand. And that's what we're doing. We're trying to simplify as much as we can hard science to show the performance of our goods.
Excellent. Well, we're coming up to the end of an hour discussion. I have a feeling we could have spent another hour because we've kind of just scratched the surface of this thing. But if I can, Dave, maybe I'll ask you, could you just give maybe like a summation of or main points you want to leave the audience with, and then I'll ask Jorge, and I'll finish with Dhruv, because I'm going to have a special question for Dhruv at the end. But but do you want to kind of sum up your perspective on this topic?
Yeah, I love Dhruv's comment when he said I started with this with susceptibility. I wasn't so sure. It was skepticism. Does this really work? And that I think there's so much out there about graphene, and you see it used in all these different industries. Well, in textiles, like I say, primarily it's the antibacterial, anti-odor, physical properties, and thermal properties that it brings to the fiber. And the nice part is you can use it in almost any kind of a woven or knit product, because the graphene is not really changing the manufacturability of the standard fibers. So these are fibers that are used in all the fabrics we're wearing today. So it's available. We are working on a lot of new grades. We have another line of products called graphene Kyrene White, which is based on a different 2D molecule. We don't have time to go in today. I mentioned the recycled grade coming out. So we've now expanded from 7 grades to 25 grades of new materials. So that's giving us more options. There's some questions about the color. Yeah, the graphene is naturally gray. It can be dyed, it can be colored, but that does sometimes have challenges in the fabric. It may come out a little darker than what the original was. So the Kyrene White that we're launching has the same properties, antimicrobial, thermal regulation, but it's white. So for bedding and some of the white type applications, we think it'll have broader applications. So we're working on new things every day. So it's exciting.
Excellent. Well, thank you. And thank you from the Graphene Council. We appreciate you as a member of the group. And this should kind of show what we try to do with our members is educate and share information. Jorge, as well for you, a closing comment?
No, thank you all guys for being here. It's been exciting. It's always fun. I think that as you just mentioned, we can be here for 5 hours and even get a couple of drinks. It will be even more interesting to see where the future lies ahead. But for now, I think that we're all in a great position where the material itself, if we are responsible but ambitious enough, the material itself is an ambassador. We have that on our side. Responsible, strong vision, and good partners, and of course try to associate with companies that take things generally as serious as probably all the guys that are part of this Graphene Council. Just being here talks a lot of how you approach the future and your business itself, and of course an open welcome to everybody here to try our goods. Again, we are a backer-centric company. We like to put our money where our mouth is. 100% lifetime guarantee. That's where we really commit, and always a direct line with me. I probably sure Terence will get into details afterwards, but our details will be there. I'm just one email away. Sorry, and thank you again. Thanks for everything.
Thanks, Jorge, and congratulations on the progress you've made, because we've watched you over the last couple of years and how this has evolved, and rightfully so, because the products are good. So Dhruv, any closing comments for you? And I would just have an eye to, I'm sure there's other major brands that are interested in your perspective. I want to say thank you again for sharing, because it's not every day that a company of your size and your position in the market would share so openly what you're working on, especially with an innovative and distinctive technology like this. So I appreciate that. Any words of wisdom for others that might want to emulate what you're doing?
No, I think, as I said, it always starts with some kind of skepticism, but, you have you cannot just take the skepticism to your heart. Just try to understand what is going on, and definitely do your homework, and try to understand what this material is all about. Any new material, we always start with some kind of a skepticism, but we always have to do our homework to understand what kind of things, what if anybody is claiming, is it true? And yes, you can depend upon your vendors to tell you what they have done. You can always get their test reports, but also you can try to do your own homework also, and understand whether it is really bringing anything to the table. That is what I will say to everyone. If you are interested, keep looking for these kind of materials. These are the materials which will take us to the next steps in our industry.
Excellent. Well, again, thank you sincerely from my side for sharing with us. Your perspective is really valued. I know that there were additional questions that we didn't get to. We had only an hour for this conversation, and there's so many aspects to discuss. If you have any questions, we will put out the contact information for our presenters. And of course, you can always write to the Graphene Council. We'll make every effort to help you with this. That's what we're here for. And so thank you all for attending this session today, and stay safe. I wish everybody a good rest of your week. So thank you for participation. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Terrence, for coordinating.
Anytime.